My friends, I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. You know what time it is. That means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we can go ahead and get started. Got to make sure the tubes are connected. And it looks like they are. That's tremendous because we've got some business to attend to today. Let's get all nice and centered here. I feel a little bit far. What's happening here? Let's get to it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Donald Trump taking the stand. Oh my goodness. He got called in front of Judge Engoran's courtroom and was ordered to testify about something, and oh my goodness. So here, let me hang on one second here. You know, it logs me out literally. Like when I start the show, like YouTube logs you out. I don't know why it does that. Show starts, it logs you out. I can't see anything. Now we're logged back in. What's up, YouTube? YouTube, golly. All right, so we are logged back in now, and we can see what's happening. Now the tubes are properly connected. And so the point was, Donald Trump takes the stand, and he's questioned about a comment that he made over to the AP. And so that's where we're going to start today. We've got a breakdown from trial in New York City, because yesterday we left off with Michael Cohen, the convicted perjurer. He was on the stand. He was being cross-examined by Alina. And so they were out in court today, and they were back in session with cross-examination done by Alina. And Trump stepped out for just a moment, said something to the AP. They published a news story about it. It worked its way back to the judge. The judge saw that. He said, "Trump, you violated my gag order." And then they held a special hearing behind closed doors. They booted the media out. They called Trump up to the stand. They had him testify, and then the judge issued a sanction against him. Good Lord. All right, so we're going to go through it and see what happened there. This is Trump's free speech rights being dumped in the garbage every single day. And he's now up to $15,000 in sanctions. We'll see what the next one looks like. But that's where we'll start. Then we have to carry on because we're still going through the motherlode of Trump's dismissal documents. And yesterday, we read a great motion about the constitutional violations that we saw Jack Smith's special counsel involved in. And it was a 31-pager. We loved it. But remember, there's all sorts of constitutional violations happening here because this is the DOJ we're talking about. But it's not just constitutional violations. There are also statutory violations, meaning that Jack Smith's indictment doesn't match the law. The law says you can bring some charges under certain conditions when the elements of the crime are met and so on. And Jack Smith's allegations don't match the statutes. And so not only are there constitutional violations, there are also statutory violations. And so we've got another 34 pagers to go through on that one. And so that's where we'll spend some time today. And we'll come back tomorrow, in all likelihood tomorrow. The show will be here, but we're, we might be in World War III or whatever, we never know. But the plan is we've got one final segment for part 3 on this, which is going to be these two final motions that were part of what we're calling the motherlode here. And they are for vindictive and selective prosecution, and then for inflammatory motions to strike some of the very colorful language out of the original indictment. So we'll go through those in part 3. Be sure that to subscribe so that you don't miss those, and we'll see you on those as well. But then in our final comment on our last segment of the day, we got a new speaker in the house. And boy, oh boy, took us some time to get here, but I think it was worth the wait. I think the juice was worth the squeeze on this one. And so we'll see what Mike Johnson had to say about it. He published something on the X platform. We'll see what that statement says. And then we'll just do a refresh. Okay, you may have missed it, so we'll hit the highlights on what happened today. We'll go through the vote. We'll go through the oath, and we'll listen to just a couple minutes of his press conference because he actually stepped out and delivered his statement. We also are then going to take a look at this plan. Now, this was circulated before he actually won. And so this document, I think, really kind of put him over the edge. He laid out a plan for the next several weeks and months, and it's very detailed. He says, this is what we're doing this week, and this week, and this week, and this week, and this week. And so I'll share it with you. Hopefully, we see some good stuff in there about maybe some investigations, maybe some DOJ work or FBI work. We'll see. Now, Trump responded to this. We'll see what he had to say about it. He's pretty happy with Mike Johnson. And we'll check in with some of the January 6th committee people to see what their take is on this new speaker from Kinzinger and Schiff. And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Kinzinger is up to 3 flags on his profile pic. See that there? He's up to 3 flags. So I don't know how far that's going to go, but he's got 3 of them there. All right. So anyways, that's Kinzinger. So as you can see, my friends, we've got a lot to get to today, and we are excited that you are here and with us. Things have been quite busy around here. We've got a lot of business to attend to. And so if you want to be a part of the fun and join in on some extra goodness, we do members only streams in the morning. So we already had a stream bright and early this morning. We were talking about some other fun stuff. And we do Saturday shows, we do after parties after this show. We've got a great group of people there. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com is where you can come and join us. And you can also become a member, get all those same benefits, except for that after party. If you're a member on YouTube, don't be bashful. Grab yourselves the Telegram link, download the Telegram app, and we'll see you in our permanent chat that never ends. That's only for the membos. We've also got our website, robertgovea.com. This is a great place where you can sign up for the daily reports to have those puppies delivered to your inbox. And you can just click here for instant access. A form will pop up. You can download the mind map materials if you want to. Everything that we're about to go through today is available for you to access from your PC or your computer or your phone. And you can also click this reports section here and read all of the latest reports, right? So all the latest stories that we're releasing on the tubes, we're also releasing them here. And what's nice about this is we can include the PDFs here when they're applicable. And you also get a little report of what the video says and what it includes inside. So be sure to check it out at robertgovea.com, and we would love to see you over there. All right, now, with any further ado, my friends, let's get into the meat and potatoes on the day, because we do have some trial activity that we weren't really expecting. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Here is the latest. Donald Trump takes the stand. Judge Engoran didn't like a comment that he made over to the Associated Press when he stepped out during the trial. In the middle of a break, he made this offhanded comment, and they published it, and Judge Engoran was furious. He said, "How dare you violate my gag order?" He threw the media out of the hearing room, and he put Donald Trump on the stand, and he actually asked him questions and then tried to adjudicate his credibility. And all this took place right in the middle of the trial. We know that Michael Cohen is up for cross-examination. He was being questioned by the very brilliant legal scholar and attorney, Alina, who was doing a great job getting a convicted perjurer to admit that he is a convicted perjurer. And she is back doing it again, and she just obliterates him today, as we're going to see. So it's a great, great performance from her and the rest of the defense team. But the judge did, in fact, call Trump up in front of everybody and put him on the stand. Now, we're going to go through this in detail. So I want to just preview that, and then we'll go through the day's activities. And for today, we're going to start off the court session here talking from Dan Alexander, who was there in the courtroom. And Dan Alexander is the senior editor over at Forbes. And he's done a great job of reporting what's happening there inside the courtroom. So he's going to give us a play-by-play, and we're going to see right where this little explosion happens in the courtroom. And later on in the day, by the way, Trump stormed out of the courtroom after the judge issued a ruling. And so this whole thing was just an explosive day. Would be very nice if they actually had cameras in the courtroom. They say they want cameras in the courtroom so that they can expose all of Trump's criminality, but there are not cameras in the courtroom, in my opinion, because it would expose their corruption. Now, Dan says he's there in court. Trump's obviously facing the charges he's facing, and the day starts immediately. All rise. Oh, the judge is coming in. Put your phone down. All right. Please be seated. Trump strolls in afterwards wearing a blue suit and a blue tie, a similar outfit to one he has worn on other days in trial. He's looking good. Now, his son's there with him, Eric Trump. He says he's here too, sitting in the front row over his father's left shoulder. So Trump is right back here. Eric Trump. Now, in come the photographer, says Dan. And they're walking like they've got somewhere to go. He says they're just flying on through there. They're not strolling around in this crowd. They line up in the front of the former president, aim their lenses. It's click, 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 before they head back to the door, stopping for shots of the attorney general as well. They're like, oh, Tish is here. Just kind of a drive-by camera footage. So then one of the officers, okay, trial's about to get underway. Now, one of the officers of the court opens the door, says, "Witness entering." Everybody moves out of the way. Michael Cohen, he passes through the doors. He's like, "I'm back." Now, yesterday, he was very cowardly and didn't look anybody in the eyes, especially Trump. And, if you're going to go stab somebody in the back and make up a bunch of lies about him, the least you could do is look him in the eye when you do it. So he is wearing a dark jacket and a white shirt, sans tie. Now, he's real hip today, as we're going to see. He doesn't need a tie, okay? He's too cool for that. So he looks towards Trump, probably didn't make eye contact, though. Pathetic. Then at the judge, and the judge says, "Oh, hello, Michael Cohen. Welcome back." Judge Engoran says, "Perfect. Let's continue with the cross-examination of Michael Cohen." Now, Alina, our favorite, is back doing the cross-examination, and here she goes and picks up where she left off. And here's what she says. "Welcome back, Mr. Cohen." And she probably goes through a little bit of maybe some opening, but she says here, "Yesterday, just wanted to follow up on your testimony. You told everything under oath yesterday, right? And everything was truthful, yeah? Was yesterday the first time that you admitted to lying during a particular guilty plea in open court? This is the first time you've ever actually acknowledged that on the record?" Which, like, that question stings. Okay, that's like, oh gosh. Is this the first time you've ever actually had to admit it? Wow. That you're a liar? In open court, boom, Cohen says yes, right? First time I have to admit that I'm a liar. Cohen confirms I'm a liar. He says now, as a witness, he's got obvious credibility issues, and so Alina is just backhanding all day, right? This is what happens when you put a perjurer on the stand, which is why you don't do that. So here Dan says, he's reporting, he says, now Trump's legal team is playing a specific video of Michael Cohen. And in that video, Michael Cohen is lying about Donald Trump's net worth on CNN during the 2016 presidential campaign. He says, Cohen's on the screen. Donald Trump's an amazing businessman. He's worth many billions of dollars, probably 10 billion. He's on CNN, right? He's on Team Trump right until then, until they flipped him because they started prosecuting him. And then he decided he was going to make a Twitter account dedicated to bashing Trump and so on. So Trump's lawyer is now pointing out, he said, this is Alina, says, now, Mr. Cohen, isn't it true that a lot of this testimony, the things that you said, like you went on CNN, isn't this true? You went on CNN and you said that Trump's net worth was more than 10 billion. Huh. And then after that statement, isn't that kind of what opened up the investigation? And so Alina's calling him out on that, right? You see what's happening. She's saying, so in other words, you'd agree with me that it's fair to say, wouldn't you, Mr. Cohen, that you in fact helped kickstart the investigation that led to this lawsuit. Isn't that true? Michael Cohen, without his tie, he looks over from the stand to Attorney General Letitia Tish James. And as we've seen her, she sits in the back of the courtroom behind the bar. And I don't really know why she does that. I mean, we would even bring interns. When I was an intern, the lawyer that I was interning with would even bring me in front of the bar. And when I was practicing, I would bring my interns with us in front of the bar. I don't know why Tish is sitting back there. She can easily, there's more room up there, I'm sure. She's the Attorney General, for crying out loud. She should be sitting there doing some of this. This is her big case. She's run a whole campaign about prosecuting Trump. So I don't know why she's not doing any actual work, but she's sitting there observing, like I guess maybe a law school students. I usually, when I was just a student, I would just sit in the back. So, hey, what's going on in here? Just like Tish. So anyways, so Michael Cohen, he's up on the stand. He looks Letitia dead-eyed, looks her in the eye, but not Trump. She's sitting in the front row, presumably behind the bar again. And he says to her, hey, Tish, you're welcome. Yells that in court. So you'd say it's fair to say that you helped, Michael, you helped kickstart the investigation that actually led to this case, right? You're welcome, Tish. He looks right at her and says it. A convicted perjurer who lied, who then goes on CNN, makes an incriminating statement, then turns around, and he's now a witness against the person that he made the statement about. Like, he said the thing. So you started it. Letitia's sitting right there. She's like, don't look at me. So Alina says, so Mr. Cohen, you said you played a key role in inflating Trump's asset, right? You admitted that. Yeah. And how come you're not a defendant in Letitia's case? I mean, if you were on CNN and you played a key role and you were out there running your mouth about 10 billion here, 10 billion there, isn't it true that you're not a defendant? Now, Alina then asks him, is the reason why you have not been charged because even Tish doesn't believe you? She doesn't know what you're saying is true. Nobody believes anything you're saying, so she's not going to charge you. Alina keeps going. And Cohen responds. He says, well, I don't know if she believes me. You could ask Miss James. Nodding to the attorney. Laughters are bubbling up in the courtroom. I don't know. Tish says, objection, back there from behind the bar. It's so pathetic. Objection, she says. More laughter in the courtroom. Oh my gosh. It's like a high school dog pile. It's insane. Like it's a dog pile. It's crazy. They're like kids. The judge is just smirking. They're all laughing. Alina's examining Cohen. Why haven't you been charged? I don't know. Ask Tish. I would like to ask Tish. Can we call her to the stand? Sure, let's do it. Tish, you want to come up here? Is what Alina should have said. I don't know if she was in there. I don't know what she said. Yeah, bring her up. Come on up here, Tish. I got a lot of questions for you. So, but they're laughing about it, right? Because this whole thing's just a big stupid joke to them. I know the answer is because Cohen is a useful witness against their political opponent named Donald Trump. Obviously, that's the answer. Tish, if she prosecuted you and you were involved in any of this stuff, then you probably wouldn't be their witness, right? And she's objection. I object to your question. Well, then get up on the stand or get up in front of the bar, Tish, if you're going to be objecting. But they're joking, right? This whole thing's just an illegitimate facade. So then Trump's attorney asks whether Cohen expected to get a position in the White House after Trump was elected president. So Alina says, hey, so Cohen, isn't it true that after Trump won, you wanted to go work in the White House? He says, incorrect. Alina says, incorrect. All right, well, I want to show you these text messages. All right, here is one of them. Do you recall this? He's like, oh, don't. Well, read it. And they show him. Isn't it true that this says that you thought that you could be chief of staff, Michael? Isn't that what that says? I guess you couldn't, he says, I don't know, interpret it that way. Alina says, okay, thanks. Judge says, okay, this is pretty damning. So we'll take a break. The judge now is furious, right? Now, we take a break. Now, something happens, okay? So let's pause. Let's take a break in this. And so Trump did come out, and he did give a statement. And this statement, we'll listen to it, but I don't think it contains the actual problematic portion that the judge is upset about. In fact, it doesn't, I'm pretty sure. But what happened was, after that break was called, you can see here, this is what Frank Runyon was reporting. He said, the press was removed from the courtroom. Trump and his attorneys are still inside. It was a chambers conference. And this is because Judge Engoran saw an AP report, and the AP report said that he suggested that Trump violated the order about commenting on the court clerk. And so the AP report looks like this. And I wanted to show you exactly what this was. Now, this story has been updated, right? They're updating this sort of multiple times, I think, updated 202. But the original story was about this. Here it is. apparently, Trump testified, he said something about, quote, a person who's very partisan sitting alongside the judge, right? The AP reported this. And Trump admits that he said something along this line. But that's it. So he made a comment, the judge is partisan and someone sitting next to him. Okay, so it's about the clerk. Now, Trump is going to say the comment was about Cohen. But the statement was made, and here is basically what Trump sounded like. Now, the statement is not in this statement, but I wanted to share this so we get a feel for what's happening. Trump comes out, makes a statement. Judge hears about it. He's furious in the aftermath.
It looks like that's going to happen. So that'll be a wonderful thing. I put out a proof today on him, and they did one last night. You saw that. We could get somebody that's going to be really spectacular, and maybe for many years to come, he'll be very good. So we're very happy about that. On the trial here, it's going very well. This is a Biden witch hunt deal. It all comes out of the DOJ. It's to interfere with the election. Our company has turned out to be much stronger than anyone even thought. The financial statements are much lower than the actual numbers. The actual numbers are much higher. We're in the process of proving that. We already have proved it. They had Mar-a-Lago valued at $18 million, the Attorney General, with the judge. We're working in coordination with the judge, and it's worth approximately 50 to 100 times that amount. This is a witch hunt. It's just a bad trial, very unfair trial. The only time the statute's ever been used for this is this. This is a statute that doesn't give you a jury, doesn't give you anything. It's a pure political witch hunt, but we have the facts on our side, so the company is much stronger than they anticipated. Much stronger than anyone really understood. It was a private company, so nobody understood it. The assets have very little debt, we have a lot of cash. It's a great company, and we're happy with the way it's going. But it's a witch hunt, there's no question about it. Getting back to Congress, we think Mike Johnson's going to do really well. He's popular, he's smart, he's sharp, he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a fantastic speaker. I believe that will happen. We'll see what. You'll let me know when I come out. I'll be out in a couple of hours.
You can make a comment later.
Would you? Well, I don't believe it because I've spoken to Mark Meadows many, many times over the years, and he strongly believed the election was rigged. Now, of course, you know, deranged Jack Smith and the prosecutors, they go after somebody for years, and they say, look, here's the story. We'll give you nothing. We'll erect a statue to you, or you're going to go to jail for 10 years for having done nothing wrong. So, you know, a lot of people have to make that decision. Some people would never make that decision. Other people would. But Mark Meadows always felt it was rigged. The whole thing was rigged. It was rigged and it was stolen. And because it was rigged and stolen, our country's gone to hell. You take a look at the border, you take a look at Israel, that would have never happened. You take a look at Ukraine, that would have never happened. Our country's going to hell. You just look at energy independent we were, and now we're not energy independent. We're not even close. We're buying energy from Venezuela and lots of other places, and we have more liquid gold under our feet. We're a crime-ridden nation. We're a nation in decline, all because of a rigged and stolen election. Thank you very much.
What about Giuliani? Do you think he'll take a deal?
All right, so that is what it looked like, and Trump was outside there. You saw a funny comment. Apparently, we got sisters here who are these two security officers. Wore the same outfit today, but anyways, that's pretty funny. So we've got Donald Trump is there. Okay, now the substance of his statement, some comments about the case, some comments about the speakership. Things are, kind of low and kind of quiet, nothing too explosive there. But apparently, he said something else, and if you look at the scenery around this courtroom, there's corridors and halls, and so he might have said something to an AP person, and the AP person just wrote it down. What do you think about this? What do you think about that, right? So Trump makes a statement, and then things went a little bit awry. And so let's go back to the trial transcript, the thread, courtesy of Dan Alexander. We're back after a brief break, right? Trump walks out, comes back in. The judge lambasts a statement that Trump reportedly made outside of the room when he suggested that a person alongside the judge is partisan, meaning the judge's clerk. This is after the judge already put out a gag order. He wasn't allowed to say that. So brings him back in, and the judge is furious. He says, quote, "Why should there not be severe sanctions for this blatant, dangerous disobeyal of a clear court order, says the judge. Blatant, dangerous disobeyal. This judge is in charge of everything now. Trump has no free speech. It's whatever he says. The judge asks. Trump's lawyer stands up. He says, Your Honor, my client was not referring to your clerk or anybody on your staff, okay? He was referring to Cohen, who was sitting right next to you. That's who he was calling the person who was dishonest, not the judge's clerk. The judge says, I'm not really sure I buy that. So I'm going to take the matter under advisement. Now, you might think that's over, but we're not. The judge is just fuming right now. Okay, now he's probably going to go talk to somebody, maybe his clerk, I don't know, whoever's giving him instructions on this, will tell him what to do. I don't know what to do now. I didn't think of the answer. It could have been talking about Cohen. So then he says, well, what do I do? He's going to think it over. He says, I'm going to take it under advisement. I'm just going to hold it off on the side. Miss Abba, please continue. Says, Trump's lawyers are now asking Cohen about money. They say, Mr. Cohen, isn't it true that your whole life is basically dedicated to screaming about Donald Trump? No. Don't you make money off him, though? Maybe. Isn't it true that you have a book that you published that talks about Trump? Yeah. Isn't it true that you have a podcast where you just scream about Trump all day like a child? Isn't it true that you sell merchandise about Trump? Pathetic. Maybe. Oh, okay. So you do have some things. So you do make some money. So now, how about you tell me about this? How much money do you make from your podcast? Does anybody listen to that, Michael? How many people bought your books that wasn't money laundering from Tish? How many people buy your stupid shirts? Anyone? Cohen says, I don't want to talk about the numbers. Okay. I don't want to talk about it. People listen. Okay. People buy. Well, but how much, Michael? Can you give me a specific number? Does anybody download your show? He says, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Well, yeah, I mean, you can only sell TDS for so much, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of people who are still addicted to that crap, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty good. You know, his numbers are good, but he doesn't want to talk about it. It's irrelevant. All right. He says, Trump's lawyer, Alina, says, you know, so in other words, it sounds like you have like new stories you have to make up every year, okay? Trump hasn't been in office for quite some time. So you just make up new stories. And that's why they bring you on MSNBC on their favorite show, Inside Jen Psaki, where they're constantly having you lecture everybody about what Trump. So, Mr. Cohen, isn't it true that the more outrageous your stories are about the president, Mr. Trump, President Trump, the more money you make? You'd say that's accurate, wouldn't you, Mr. Cohen? No. But isn't it true that you have a financial incentive to criticize Donald Trump? You would agree with that, wouldn't you? Cohen says, yes, I do. Of course he does. He didn't lie about that one. So Trump's team continues to slam his credibility. They pull up an article from CNN. They say, CNN article from 2015. They say, hey, Mr. Cohen, do you remember when you said this? Remember when you said this back in 2015 in November? They said that you said that you've never known Trump to say something inaccurate. Wow. A top counsel for Trump on Monday defended the presidential frontrunner in an exchange with Jake Tapper, following his boss's refusal to back down on claims about 9/11. Michael Cohen sparred with Jake Tapper on the lead. Cohen did not back down with a 9/11 claim. He said to Jake Tapper on air, Cohen, quote, I'm not so sure that that's true. And I've worked for Mr. Trump now for a long time, Cohen said. And I can tell you that Mr. Trump's memory is fantastic. And I've never come to a situation where Mr. Trump has said something that is not accurate. Cohen brought up posts on social media of other people, and he defends Trump. So it's true, isn't it, Michael, that you said Trump has never said anything that is not accurate? And I agree with him, by the way, on this thing. I don't think Trump gets credit for this. I think his memory is quite good. Did you know, he is tap dancing around this chuck and gag order, or he was, and he just came out and he knows like when he can say deranged thug and not. I mean, he's like on point. And it's, you know, he's dealing with a lot of complex issues simultaneously, and he's still juggling all the gag orders every day in front of the press, fielding questions, and he's just tap dancing around them. It's actually impressive, right? It's not an easy thing to do. And so we'll notice that. Now, it's insane that he has to do that. He should be able to say whatever the hell he wants. But within the confines of the law, legally, there are already laws that make it illegal to threaten people and so on. But here, Cohen, the convicted perjurer, was also defending Trump. So we go back to the threat. Mr. Cohen, isn't it true you said that? He says, well, I said that, but my words weren't true then. So you lied about those words? Well, I would just say that they weren't true. Okay, so you lied. Next question. Now, Alina is getting closer to the conclusion of her cross-examination. And she says, I want to pull up another example here from 2019. Do you remember when you gave testimony to Congress? Yeah. And this question came up. You gave testimony, and here's the question. Mr. Cohen, did Mr. Trump direct you or Mr. Weisselberg to inflate the numbers for his personal statement? Cohen says, I'm sorry, in Congress. Did he ask me to inflate the numbers? Not that I recall, no. So you say, wow. So Trump didn't ask you to inflate the numbers because you just said he did yesterday. So are you lying now? Or were you lying then? Were you lying yesterday when you said Trump told you to inflate the numbers, or were you lying in Congress when you told them that he did not tell you to inflate the numbers? Cohen responds. He says, well, I was lying under oath in that testimony in front of Congress. Alina Abba ends it appropriately, doesn't ask an additional question, and drops it. Boom. No further questions, Your Honor. This dude's a liar. He says, I was lying under oath in that testimony before Congress. Oh, so you just come on the stand and just lie. So we can't take you credibly at all. Dan says, Trump's lawyers got Cohen to admit in open court that he lied under oath in other settings on multiple occasions. The dude is a bona fide liar. So they go get hot dogs at lunch. Man, those look good. And we're back in lunch. Now, this is where things get a little bit squirrely. All right. Now, we think that the judge has taken this AP comment that Trump made under advisement, and we're going to hear something about it later. But, boom, we're back from lunch. Dan hits it right on the head, says, oh boy. The judge starts an impromptu hearing, and he calls Donald Trump to the witness stand to ask him about the comments that he made earlier in the morning about referencing someone next to the judge. Whoa. Donald Trump takes the stand, my friends, okay, in a civil case. But the former president, we were expecting maybe to hear from him in a criminal January 6th case, or the classified documents case down in Florida, or Big Fanny's RICO case. He takes the stand. Not in his own defense or anything, but because the judge has ordered him to that, okay? So he walks up there, sits down in the bench. The judge says, I've got questions for you. Now, we've been following this bouncing ball, okay? It goes from something minor, a simple warning, to 5,000 to 10,000, as we'll get to, and so on. But now Trump is sworn in under oath. Mr. President, raise your right hand. Trump raises his hand. Do you promise to swear the whole truth, tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, God? I do. Mr. President, Mr. Trump, I'm sure he calls him Mr. Trump. Please be seated. He says, Mr. Trump, the court has become aware of comments you made that are in direct violation of my gag order, blah, blah, blah. How do you answer to the allegation that you have violated my order and disobeyed me? He says, well, I didn't disobey you. I was talking to the press and I was criticizing Michael Cohen, who was sitting right next to you. I wasn't talking about your clerk. And the judge says, Mr. Trump, are you sure you didn't mean my law clerk? The judge asks. Apparently the same clerk has been whispering in his ear or whatever. Trump says, yes, I'm sure. Have you referred to her as partisan? Trump, judge questioning him. He says, yeah, well, I think she's very biased against us. I think we made that clear. He says, thank you, Mr. Trump. Questioning's over. Trump steps down from the stand. Judge doesn't seem to be buying it. Judge Engoran says, well, Mr. Trump, I hereby fine you $10,000, which is on the liberal side, to be paid within 30 days to the lawyer's fund for client protection. He says, you know, now that I think about it, he's mulling it over. Hold on a minute, he says. You know what? I've reconsidered. I'm reconsidering this. He's probably, I don't know if he's thinking 10, 20,000, 50,000. What does he say? Liberal side? Like that is what? Aggressive? Or that is not aggressive? What does this mean? Which is on the liberal side. Insane? On the insane side? On the liberal side, I think it'd be like $10 trillion for Ukraine or something. I don't know. But, you know, which is on the liberal side. I don't even know what that means. But to be paid within 30 days. So he's mulling it over. I've reconsidered, and the ruling stands. He says, and don't do it again, or it will be worse. Trump. Now, this hearing is over. Don't do it again, or it will be worse. Maybe 20,000. Maybe 50,000, maybe contempt of court. And every time it's going to escalate, okay? And Judge Chutkan is going to look at this and she's going to, you know, well, her case is being appealed right now, but she did look over to New York City to be informed on it. And we'll see, right? It's getting not good. Judge sends him back after examining the former president for making a statement about a court clerk. Now, you might say it's inadvisable to make a statement about a court clerk. I would tell my defendant, it's probably not a good idea. But let me explain that. Because my defendant, when I was representing people, was not usually or ever the subject of an orchestrated political prosecution by their political opponents in America. Never happened. And when that is something that happens, when the institution is that is prosecuting you and denying you your due process and your liberty, when that very institution is corrupt, the literal only mechanism that you have to combat that is free speech. You have to be able to contest it. And you go out and speak freely, and you rally support to your cause, and you win in the marketplace of ideas, and you get more votes, and you change the course of the country. That's just how it works. That's why free speech is number one. It's the First Amendment. Now, the judge is going to come around and try to justify this. And what is his justification about this clerk? And maybe she is whispering in his ear this whole time. I don't know. They don't have cameras in the courtroom. But I would love to know that. I'd love to see it. Why is this judge getting whispered into his ear all the time? Shouldn't we have the right to know? Shouldn't Trump be allowed to talk about that? Can't he criticize? You can't criticize the Justice Department or the DOJ, or you can criticize the judge, but not the operation of the court. So the judge can just outsource all of the corruption to somebody else and then say, I'm protecting my staff. You can criticize me all you want, but all these other people who are involved in your unjust prosecution, they're immune and immunized from recourse? No, that's insane. Okay, it's free speech. So the judge, anyways, ends the hearing and takes another $10,000 away from Trump without any legitimacy, in my opinion. And so here now, Michael Cohen comes back into the courtroom and says, he walks up to the witness stand. Now, Alina Abba, she's taking a break. She just obliterated him. She doesn't want to embarrass him anymore. So she says, I'll let somebody else take it from here. So a new attorney from Trump jumps up. His name's Clifford Robert. Shout out. Now he's questioning Michael Cohen, and he's returning to another familiar topic. So he says, Mr. Cohen, we've got all these other records. You know, isn't it true that you actually lied in front of Congress? Isn't that true? And Cohen says, actually, no. He says, actually, no, now my testimony before Congress was actually true. When he was asked, did Trump direct you or Mr. Weisselberg to inflate the numbers? And he replied, I'm sorry. Did he ask me to? Not that I recall, no. He says, actually, that was true. So I didn't lie back then. Oh my gosh. Now, look at this. Trump's team cannot hold back its smiles. They're like, what the heck? What did he just say? Okay, so just to be clear about this. So Michael Cohen, during Alina's cross-examination, he admitted that he lied to Congress. Okay, because he was in Congress saying that Trump did not tell him to inflate the numbers. In other words, he told Congress Trump is innocent. But now he's here saying Trump is guilty. And so they said, okay, so that makes you a liar. Okay, so you literally lied to Congress. And I don't know if he's been prosecuted for those charges or not, or if that's a separate instance, right? That might be a separate instance. He's already been prosecuted and convicted on this. So that might have been a separate instance. So Cohen might have changed his answer so that he doesn't get prosecuted again for a second lying offense. Okay, so then Cohen changes his answer and he comes back and says, actually, I didn't lie in front of Congress. And when I said that Trump is innocent in Congress, that was the truth. Dan says, this is wild, man. And it is wild. I would like a full transcript here. It's like, what? So Trump and his team cannot hold back their smiles. They're absolutely thrilled about this. One of Trump's lawyers jumps up. He says, Your Honor, this is clear. Okay. The person, they make a motion for a directed verdict, which would mean the judge would just issue a ruling now, stop the case, heard enough, probably jumped up, made the argument, Your Honor, this is Michael Cohen. Okay, he makes up the crux of this case by his own testimony. He even admitted that he was the person who helped launch this whole thing. He started this by going on CNN, as he admitted, and inflating Trump's values on his own. And then he's lied multiple times working with Tish James to create this whole fiction in here. And he's had multiple times on the record where he said Donald Trump didn't tell him to inflate the records. In fact, he just confirmed for us when he was in front of Congress, that was the truth. And so that means that he's lying here today. He just told you that Congress was true, which means he is lying to you today. Therefore, this is such a catastrophe to their case. This is the key witness for them. And so, Your Honor, this is a travesty of justice. We would move for a directed verdict. And please decide this case and end it and conclude it right now, please. Thank you. Nothing further. So they sit down. The judge responds, okay, Judge Engoran, this little guy, he says, look at this. He says, denied. He says it like that, right? He articulated both of the syllables. Denied. Looks over to his lawyers. His people. It's a communist show trial is really like what it is. It's very analogous to that. So Donald Trump is furious. Okay, he stands up. He causes all the officers to go on high alert. The former president then walks out of the courtroom, okay? He says, deny. And Trump's just like, and gets out. Ah! And everybody freaks, man. I feel that. And so everyone's on high alert. A group of security personnel, they join Donald Trump. They exit the courtroom. Eric Trump joins his father on his way out of the room. Everyone freezes. Secret Service is like, what the heck is going on? Now, then they get back on track. So then Trump storms out. Then the Attorney General comes back up for redirect exam, right? They get an opportunity to fix all this. Cohen tries to clear up the confusion. They're like, what did you say? What did you mean? He says, Trump did not specifically state, like Michael, go inflate the numbers. He says, Trump speaks like a mob boss. And what he does is he tell you what he wants without specifically telling you. Oh, man. Trump's team says, Your Honor, look, you just heard from him, okay? They just fixed his statement on redirect, and this case has to be ended. The judge says, absolutely denied. He says, I do not see this trial hanging solely on Cohen's testimony. There's enough evidence in this case to fill this courtroom, says the judge. Which is just crazy because the judge hasn't heard all the evidence yet. So the judge has already made a predetermination, okay? The judge is already come to his judgment. Now, that's it. There's enough evidence in this case to fill the courtroom. Cohen is done. Open court proceedings are over. Dan says, of the days I've been in this courthouse, none have been as wild as this one. Thanks for following along. And so, my friends, make sure you're following Dan Alexander and tell him thank you from us for doing a great job reporting. I really liked his reporting. It's very kind of fair. I think it's very factual, and we're grateful that he is sharing these threads. And it sounds like they got some good hot dogs over there. So make sure you're checking them out. He's over at Dan Alexander 21 on the X platform, and apparently he'll be there tomorrow and throughout the rest of the trial. And so thank you to Dan for posting all that stuff out for us. So, my friends, that is the big day in New York City in Tishy James's courtroom, where she's sitting behind the bar. Trump fined another $10,000. We'll see where this case goes, my friends. We'll continue to cover it. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us as we cover this case and all of the other Trump cases. And we'll look forward to seeing you right out over in the next segment. All right. Now, that is New York. Now, let's go over to Washington, D.C. and continue on with the motherlode of dismissal documents that we've been waiting for. And this is Trump's dismissal motherlode part 2. We've got a whole slew of filings from the president's defense team, and we've already gone through his motion to dismiss based on constitutional violations. It was a 31-pager, part of a series of what we're calling 4 motions, calling them the motherlode, because they are all quite good and quite juicy. And we've been waiting for Trump's team to assemble these for us to unpack. And so there was a whole slew of constitutional violations, things like due process under the law, things like equal protection, things like free speech, things like being able to participate in the political process, petition your government for a redress of grievances. Many reasons why Jack Smith's indictment and the DOJ's prosecution brought by Joe Biden is unconstitutional, just as applied to the Constitution. And we reviewed that in depth. But this is a whole separate category. Okay, Constitution is very important. It's the supreme law of the land. It's the root document. But there are other bases, very good bases, for dismissals, like saying that the indictment doesn't match the law. And so we are going to run through in detail the motion to dismiss based on statutory grounds, which says that Jack Smith is not in compliance with the U.S. Code. And then in our final portion of this motherlode coverage, we'll also talk about the motions to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution, and the motion to strike all of the inflammatory, colorful language that Jack Smith dumped all over the indictment, to strike all of that. So that will be part 3, and be sure you're subscribed for that. But now let's get in to the motion to dismiss, because we love these juicy motions, and this one is a 34-pager filed out of Judge Chutkan's District of Columbia courtroom. The case is Jack Smith, Joe Biden, and the deep state against Trump. This is President Trump's motion to dismiss the indictment based on statutory grounds. I know that sounds kind of boring, but it's not. It's quite good. They say, Your Honor, Judge Chutkan, targeting an audience other than this court, Jack Smith's indictment in this matter rants endlessly about President Trump's politics, and in a shockingly un-American display of authoritarianism, the indictment accuses Trump of crimes for having and expressing, quote, the wrong opinions. Buried at the end of this diatribe in the indictment are conclusory statements that Trump's alleged actions somehow violated these various U.S. codes. And remember, in the law, things have to be very specific. Like, if you're going to get charged with the crime, you got to be very articulate about what the elements of that crime are. Otherwise, you could be prosecuted for anything. And so they're going to walk us through the U.S. law for each one of these sections, and we're going to unpack them. They say, Your Honor, Chutkan, Jack Smith does not explain how President Trump violated any of these statutes. All they do is simply say that he has, while regurgitating the statutory language. They're not walking us through the law. Now, as explained herein, the reason the prosecution employed this little tactic is plain. It's because President Trump did not violate the statutes. Even if you accept that their false allegations are true. Now, this is a very important point. You can even say, if everything that Jack Smith said was true, every single criminal allegation was true, it still doesn't break the law, because the law does not criminalize that conduct. They say, Chutkan, accordingly, your court should dismiss this case for failure to state an offense. They complained a bunch of whining. Jack Smith, insurrection, American democracy, blah, blah, blah. But it is not criminal, they tell us. President Trump denies the allegations in the indictment and explains accordingly. The first statute that they bring up is 18 U.S. Code 371. They say the first count charges Trump with conspiracy to defraud the country. And the actual charge says the following. If two or more people conspire to, quote, defraud the United States, they've got that italicized for us, or any agency, each shall be imprisoned. Now, the statute that they charge Trump under doesn't tell us what that means. What does defraud the United States mean? What does that mean specifically? And it doesn't give us any textual guidance about what that means either. So at the bare minimum, however, the statute, the law, it requires something in there, a showing of trickery or deceit. And the indictment doesn't allege that. So for cases outside of financial fraud, for example, cases involving fraudulently obtaining money and other things, the statute also requires, so they're looking at other case law that says, you got to have these other elements. You can't just say, Jack Smith, it's defraud the United States, right? How broad is that? What the heck does that mean? So they apply it to other types of laws. Well, if it's a financial crime, it involves fraudulently obtaining money or property, or a showing of obstruction or interference. Okay, it's not as broad as defraud. Not as broad as defraud. A conspiracy to defraud the United States, it requires more. What does it require? The Supreme Court says that defraud, the word defraud, means deceit or trickery. And they give us another example. There was this other case. The government charged political activists who opposed the draft for allegedly defrauding the United States. They said that they printed and circulated handbills urging others to refuse to register for the draft. So prosecutors used the broad language of the statute to criminalize the disfavored viewpoints. The government said that the statute is very broad and it includes all of this. But the Supreme Court said no. You can't just charge anybody for anything. The indictment in that case was deficient because the word defraud requires deceit or trickery, not just advocacy. Okay, it's a much higher standard. They say in this case, here, Jack Smith does not allege anything that constitutes deceit or trickery. The indictment says that three things are needed. They say that all of these are involved in making a false statement. One, that Trump said 2020 was rigged. Two, alternate slates of electors. And three, making claims about Pence. All of those things Jack Smith alleges were illegal. Now they're going to take each one of those apart one by one. They say first, they say that Trump said that the outcome was tainted by fraud is essentially illegal. They say that he made the claims after meetings and in meetings with state officials, DOJ people, and all of the other people. They said that his false legal claims were problematic. But those things that he said cannot support any allegation of defrauding the United States. The supposedly false claims in Jack Smith's indictment all relate to publicly visible, vigorously disputed, widely reported debates of the day. Half the country was talking about rigged and stolen elections. Therefore, this is not at all deceit or trickery. Right? In other words, the statute is for actual defrauding. Trump was engaged in just legitimate political conversation. Every official listed in the indictment unquestionably knew that election fraud and irregularities were vigorously disputed topics. Virtually every American, included cited public officials, had similar access to much of the same info. So there was no deceit. We all knew it. Many of us thought, it was fraudulent. There was wall-to-wall media coverage about this. Each official had every opportunity to form their own conclusions, just like Trump did. So how could Trump, how could he be out there? He's tweeting every day about this. Rigged, 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 rigged. They told us we couldn't even say that word anymore on YouTube. So how is Trump tricking or deceiving anyone when he's telling them exactly what he's doing? In fact, that's part of his campaign, which wasn't over, right? The campaign was to win the election. And so he's still making claims about that. How is that deceit or trickery? There's no defrauding there. It's all open. His whole timeline's filled with it. So everybody was talking about it. In fact, the Democrats were responding to it. Republicans were even denying it. There were lawsuits being filed over it. So to say that this is deceit is beyond absurd. So it is therefore entirely unsurprising that this type of conduct involving pure advocacy directed to public officials bears no resemblance to other types of cases where courts have found deceit. And they're going to give us some examples. Okay, other cases of what are actually deceit are listed there. They continue. Similarly, false statements talking about Vice President Pence are allowed. Jack Smith says that anything about Pence that's illegal, all those suffer from the same problems as well. They say, in fact, for the first time, the vice president's position had a ton of power, and then after 2020, they changed a bunch of rules and they sought to limit the vice president's duties. So they were saying Mike Pence didn't have the power, and then they took the power away that he did have after the fact. Right? They closed the gap after it was over, meaning that he did have the power. Next, the indictment alleges that Trump was organizing alternate and contingent slates of electors. But the indictment does not allege any trickery or deceit in those alternate slates of electors. No, they sent them into the archives and to the courts. There's no trickery. They said, we are the alternate electors. Here's our name and signature. The indictment alleges that there was a clear difference in the form of the certified and the alternate electors, and that this difference makes them distinguishable. And they're giving us some language from the indictment. But they say that's not what the allegation is. They say alternate slates of electors were to be submitted with the understanding that they were in fact alternate electors, and then Congress would debate them. That's the point. The prosecution might think this approach was based on a baseless legal theory, but that is not a basis for fraud. They may not like the legal theory, in other words, they might disagree with the mechanics of it, but that does not constitute criminal fraud. And Jack Smith's indictment does not allege trickery or deceit anyways. They say there is no question that every relevant public official identified in the indictment fully understood which slate of electors had been certified, and no allegations in the indictment suggest that Trump attempted to cast any doubt whatsoever on this issue. Okay, Trump said, yeah, both of them came in from Arizona, from whatever state. Debate them. But he didn't say that Arizona's alternate electors were actually the real ones that should be accepted and then the others thrown out. Right? That's not what the indictment is alleging. Instead, the indictment alleges that President Trump attempted to persuade officials to consider alternate slates, notwithstanding any earlier certifications. Like, it wasn't an order, right? He didn't order them. It wasn't the president's calling you, accept my alternates rather than yours. It was, hey, debate it. Bring them up to the floor, debate the issue. This did not involve deceit or trickery as to the electors in and of themselves, but that was protected speech about the conduct of the election itself. And so, given that clearly it is no accident that this indictment doesn't allege trickery or deceit, they can't do it because the plan for alternate electors was discussed openly again. The Washington Post reported about it. They boasted publicly about it. Here's another Washington Post article. Fox News was talking about it. New York Times was talking about it. Everybody was talking about it. Now, the indictment constantly says fraudulent and fake and sham, but it uses the words fraudulent and sham to mean legally unauthorized. That is not trickery or deceit. And of course, submitting legally unauthorized alternate electors is not fraud as a matter of law, especially not the highly sophisticated public officials who've got lawyers, including the vice president and the archivist, right? So there was no fraud. Now, they say that one or more of these electors was induced to participate in the plan through false promises made. But even if this allegation were true, which it is not, they're saying Trump didn't promise anybody for anything. Even if it somehow did allege trickery or deceit, it still is not defrauding the United States as the statute requires. These allegations do not identify any supposedly misstatement to any federal official, only to other participants in the alleged scheme. That's an interesting nuance point. So basically, right, saying what they're doing is they're attacking every element of the law, right? So here you can see it's defrauding the United States. What does defrauding mean? What does the United States mean? And what was the actual conduct that happened here, and does it apply? They say the Supreme Court gave us some rulings on it, and that political advocacy is not interference with a government function. They say to obstruct anything, they give us some actual definitions. Look at this one, it's from Webster's. To place an obstacle in or fill with obstacles or impediment. That is what obstruction means. More dictionary definitions. And they say the statute should be narrowly construed so that we protect First Amendment speech. The statute is way too overbroad. They say the courts routinely observe that 18 U.S. Code 371 is extremely broad. And they want you to narrow that. It requires narrow interpretation, a lot of technical stuff here. But for the reasons, this does not criminalize Trump's conduct. They say the prosecution creates a lot of vagueness problems. We need a narrow interpretation because if the law is too broad, it's going to criminalize a bunch of conduct that we don't want to criminalize. We want our laws to give people notice so that they know what the law is, and if they break it, there's responsibility for that. But if it's broad and it can mean anything to anybody, that leads to due process violations because you don't have proper notice about what's happening. So they say the narrow interpretation is necessary to avoid fatal vagueness problems. If the law is too vague, it's void for vagueness. If, as Jack Smith contends, any statement made in the course of advocating one's position on any hotly disputed political topic, in other words, if any politician says anything and that statement can constitute a conspiracy to, quote, defraud the United States, that is going to be just exploited This interpretation, if adopted, would render the statute unconstitutionally vague because it would not provide fair notice of the conduct that is prohibited. And we know that that's a due process problem. People have to understand what the law, what is prohibited conduct. It has to be sufficiently definite so that ordinary people can understand what conduct is prohibited. You can't just pass arbitrary and discriminatory and forced laws. It's called void for vagueness, and it's a constitutional principle. Nobody's been prosecuted for something like this before, not in 234 years, but they just prosecute Trump. They say we should have more narrow interpretations, and as we continue on, we see other sections of the code, right? So that was kind of the same framework for one section. Same thing here. They say, what about the conspiracy charge? It should also be dismissed. Here, Jack Smith and the indictment, they take a statute directed at the destruction of records for accounting fraud cases, and they apply that statute to disputing the outcome of a presidential election. This takes that statutory language and it stretches it beyond any plausible mooring to its texts. We have another statute here. They say there is no evidence or anything even alleged of obstruction or impeding an official proceeding. What was the obstruction? They give us the definition for it. And they interpret it. And they're trying to make the argument that Trump obstructed Congress and committed a felony, but they're just saying you don't actually allege what that conduct was. Similarly, Trump did not act corruptly, and they can't prove that statute. Corruptly has a key definition, and the corrupt purpose part of this cannot be satisfied by just pointing to lobbying or similar political activities. They say here, in this indictment, Trump engaged in, quote, a peaceful effort to convince members to raise objections. That's it. Any broader reading would make this entire statute unconstitutional, constitutionally untenable, and so we must get rid of it. The idea is that if you have a constitution, if you have some law that if you interpreted it one way, it breaks everything, then the idea is you don't interpret it that way. And so they're saying here, Your Honor, like if we go this way on this case, it's going to be outside of alignment with all the other ways that this statute was used historically. And so they say here, as noted in Trump's other motion to dismiss based on constitutional grounds, as we already read through, President Trump and others, they do have a First Amendment right to state that the election was stolen, and they have the right to advocate for members of Congress and for other government officials to do something about it. Criminalizing that advocacy would raise grave constitutional concerns, to say the least, and therefore that should be rejected because it's going to break the whole structure. But it's Trump, and they're breaking glass in case of emergency. Further, they say other holdings support our claim, and they say this other count of the indictment should be dismissed as well. Trump did not have fair notice that he was interfering with a constitutionally protected right by seeking to examine and preserve election fraud challenges, and therefore this should be dismissed as well. They say no agreement between Trump and others to commit any unlawful act is identified. The indictment recognizes that Trump had the right to speak publicly about the election, also to raise concerns about fraud, to claim election victory, and to formally challenge the results. What they said was through lawful and appropriate means. But they say, as set forth in Trump's other motion, which we'll read in another segment, all of the indictment's factual allegations relating to Trump involve him lawfully carrying out his presidential duties. They were all protected by the First Amendment, as covered in other motions, and without the agreement to commit an unlawful act, without that element, there is no conspiracy, and so those charges should fail. They say, in 2020, no court decision had stated that contesting an election through lawful means, including by public statements, court challenges, alternate slates of electors, that any of that was unconstitutional or infringement of anyone's right to vote. To be sure, in fact, in previous presidential elections, the Supreme Court said that the individual citizen has no federal constitutional right to vote for electors for the President of the United States unless and until the state legislature chooses a statewide election as the means to implement the power to appoint the members of the college. Bush versus Gore. But the court did not consider whether either then Governor Bush or then VP Gore had individually infringed on any constitutional rights. In other words, by these guys challenging this, did they infringe upon your right as an American? They were using lawful means to advance their interests. Was Bush prosecuted? No. Was Gore prosecuted? No. The country was in chaos during that time. To the contrary, the court indicated that the parties had taken the appropriate route to resolve the dispute through the mechanisms. Historic precedent is also close and supports this concept, and courts have rejected prosecutions under this statute for issues that did not have clearly established federal constitutional protection. They give us some other cases here. And they also tell us that it doesn't allege specific intent, which I think is an important concept. Let's read it. It says Section 241 requires proof of specific intent to violate a constitutional rights. Because of this requirement, not every conspiracy affecting an individual's constitutional right is it within the statute. So here, in this case, Jack Smith must show that President Trump specifically intended to interfere with someone's constitutional right to vote. It's got to be articulate and concrete. That's like distinguish that from general intent, which is just you kind of intend the thing to happen, but it doesn't have to go to specific to someone. Someone's constitutional right to vote. And the prosecution has failed to allege Trump had any specific intent. Therefore, the count should be dismissed. They say they also must prove that Trump acted to accomplish a governmental purpose. And to convict Trump, they must prove that Trump took post-election actions to accomplish a governmental objective and not for any personal gain. Proving this, however, directly implicates Trump's presidential immunity. So accordingly, the prosecution will fail because it did not prove for a government objective, or it will fail because proving the government objective will confirm the charges barred under presidential immunity. Either way, Trump is immune. And so therefore, count 4 is also deficient on its case. Man, that was a doozy. Seriously, serious stuff in there. And says this court should dismiss the indictment with prejudice. Signed again by the same two familiar faces here, your friends Todd Blanche and John F. Lauro, on behalf of Donald Trump. And so you can see here, I really like the structure on this. They went through every single statute one by one. We see them all here. Boom, 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 boom. 4 different charges, and they just broke them down. They take the statute, separate it out into its different subcomponents, and articulate why everyone fails every which way. And all of Trump's conduct, summarized, is protected. As the president, he's immune. He has the right to go and investigate and execute the duties of the law. The fact that they overlap with his political interests does not make it illegal. Other people have done it historically using these same mechanisms. They were in charge with a crime. And he's protected with free speech, and that, simply put, the statutes don't criminalize the conduct that is alleged. That is the whole basis of this filing. Motion to dismiss the indictment based on statutory grounds. So, good stuff from Donald Trump and his defense team, and that is just getting warmed up. There's going to be a lot more on this case. And in our next segment, we'll come back in part 3, and we'll finish up with the motion to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution, saying Jack Smith is essentially illegally and unconstitutionally targeting Trump. And we'll also take a look at the motion to strike all of the inflammatory language out of the indictment. So be sure you're subscribed, my friends, because there's going to be a lot more on this case and all of the other Trump cases that we're covering here. Thank you for inviting somebody to come over, check out the channel, learn more about the mechanics behind what they are doing to the president. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, now we've got one final segment on the day, and we wrap it up with a new speaker. Speaker Mike Johnson finally takes the gavel. It's been a long time coming, and we've got to unpack what his actual plan is, because this is what was released to the members of Congress inside the halls of Congress. They passed it around, and man, Mike Johnson came out with a big victory. Pretty interesting day. And so we'll go through the day's activities and hear from Mike Johnson and hear from Trump, along with some other of the lefties, some other people who were on the January 6th committee, crying Kinzinger and Shifty Schiff over there. They had a reaction to the new Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House. But this is what he posted over on the X platform. He said, "America, it is the honor of a lifetime to have been elected the 56th Speaker of the House. Thank you to my colleagues, friends, and staff and family for the unmatched support through this process. It has been an arduous few weeks, and a reminder that the House is as complicated and diverse as the people we represent. The urgency of this moment demands bold, decisive action to restore trust, advance our legislative priorities, and demonstrate good governance. Our House Republican Conference is united and eager to work. As Speaker, I will ensure the House delivers the results and inspires change for the American people. We will restore trust in this body. We will advance a comprehensive conservative policy agenda that we'll look at and combat the harmful policies of the Biden administration. And we'll support our allies abroad, and we will restore sanity to a government desperately in need of it. Let's get back to work." And so that's Mike Johnson. Now let's run through what happened in the halls of Congress today. This is what the vote sounded like when they finally made the finding
in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 429, of which the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana has received 220 votes. And the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 209 votes.
All right.
Therefore, the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 118th Congress.
All right, so they finally got it done, and here's a couple more excerpts from Congress. Here's where he takes the oath, and we'll just hit a couple highlights from this one.
I'm now ready to take the oath of office, and I ask the Dean of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Harold Rogers of Kentucky, to please administer the oath of office.
Mr. Speaker Designee, congratulations on your election.
Thank you, sir.
When our founding fathers chose a bold, new, and innovative
There's Kev.
new self-rule government,
There's Kev.
it was met by deep skepticism by the world's monarchs. They said self-rule is only a dream. Our founders said they're right. It's the American dream.
Amen.
That's right, baby. Yeah. The American dream.
Now it's our dream. We're in charge. The speakership of the United States House of Representatives.
All right, we get the gist. Let's swear him in.
And that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter. So help you God.
I do, so help me God.
All right.
Congratulations, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so then he gave a speech in Congress, and then he went outside and gave a press conference speech. And so let's listen in to what he said after the day.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Tom and Elise. This is an extraordinary team that has been assembled here to serve the American people. Steve Scalise represents so much in our home state of Louisiana. One of the things he truly represents is perseverance and hope. And as he was talking here just a moment ago, I was reminded of the scripture that says suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. What we need in this country is more hope. The people have lost their faith in our institutions. Their faith is at an all-time low. And one of the reasons they've lost it is because the Congress, over the years, has not delivered for the American people well enough. We're in the majority right now. We've gone through a little bit of suffering. We've gone through a little bit of character building. And you know what it's produced? More strength, more perseverance, and a lot of hope. And that's what we're about to deliver to the American people.
All right, all right.
We're going to speak with clarity and conviction and consistency to the American people. We're going to tell them what we're for, what agenda we are pursuing, and why it is best for every American, why it will give them more liberty, opportunity, and security. We're going to speak to that clearly. We're going to act consistently, and we're going to exhibit two things here: trust and teamwork. And this group will deliver for the American people. I said it in the chamber, and I will say it here. We're going to govern well, and I think the people are going to be very pleased with those results. We're so grateful. I'm so grateful and so humbled to have gotten a unanimous vote on the floor by all of my colleagues here.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a big deal.
We went through a lot to get here, but we are ready to govern, and that will begin right away. You've all heard me talk a lot today, and I'm not going to belabor the point because the sun is bright and it's too warm for the fall. But I'll say this: we're going to dispense with all the usual ceremonies and celebrations that traditionally follow a new speakership because we have no time for either one.
All right.
The American people's business is too urgent in this moment. The hour is late, the crisis is great. In America, we hear you. And we are reporting again, as I said in there, to our duty stations. That will begin in just a few moments. This entire group is going to go back to the House floor, and we are going to pass our resolution in support of the nation of Israel, our closest ally in the Middle East. You're going to see an aggressive schedule in the days and weeks ahead. You're going to see Congress working as hard as it's ever worked, and we are going to deliver for the American people. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I want to thank you for being patient with us. And I promise you, it'll be worth it. Yeah. God bless you. God bless you.
All right, so man, they're all pretty excited about that. And they're going right back into work, get to work right away. All right, so that is what he said. And it's a pretty historic day, you know, unanimous. Even Kev didn't get that. So Kev was sitting there in attendance and didn't look too happy about it. Now, this is the plan that we see Mike Johnson sent out, and we're wondering if this is what may have pushed him over the finish line or what was going on here that made this vote so unanimous. But this is the plan, and look how he starts his letters. Dear friends, which I approve of, that message. He sent this one October 23rd, and he says, all right, this is Congress, right? He says, Mike Johnson, 4th District, Louisiana. Congress from the House of Representatives. He says, hey, friends in Congress, we all agree the urgency of this hour demands that the next Speaker of the House must present a specific plan for bold, decisive action that will engage our members in productive work as one successful team, advance our key principles and legislative priorities, and allow us to demonstrate good governance. Governing well will ensure that we meet unprecedented challenges of the day and expand our majority next year. Get more Republicans. We must take action right away. I would begin by proposing the following immediate steps concerning our unfinished appropriations bills and our schedule for the remainder of this Congress. And this is signed by Mike Johnson, the man himself. Dear friends, we all understand that our next speaker, now him, must be prepared to negotiate from a position of strength with the Democrat-controlled Senate and the White House. The only way to secure that position is for the House to have passed all 12 of our appropriations measures. I am confident we can work together to accomplish that objective quickly in a manner that delivers on our principled commitments to rein in the wasteful spending and put our country back on a path to fiscal responsibility. It will be challenging work, but we can and will do it. In the interest of time, I, Mike Johnson, would propose that we seek consensus to discharge the last two appropriations bills, labor, HHS, and education as one, and commerce, justice, and science, from the Appropriations Committee. We should also create, and I don't know what is involved in those, okay, so discharge, whatever congressional vernacular that means, from the Appropriations Committee. We should also create a new working group to address member concerns with agriculture, rural development, and FDA appropriations bills. As all of this is being completed, if another stopgap measure is needed to extend government funding beyond the November 17th deadline, I would propose a measure that expires January 15th or April 15th based on what we can obtain in a conference consensus. Now, to ensure that the Senate cannot jam up the House with a Christmas omnibus. Now, meanwhile, I would suggest the following calendar adjustments for considering appropriations on the House floor. So more spending certainly is coming, but we already knew that was coming. Now, just pausing for a minute, right? Like, I understand this. Like, a lot of us would rather just delete all of this stuff. Like, what do you mean? FDA appropriations, here's the solution, 0. Health and Human Services, what's the appropriation? Easy, 0. Next question. Education, gone. And so on. But this is how Congress works, right? So we have to kind of like deal with this crap. I know it's gross, but it's true. So here, we got to pass money that's going to get us until November 17th, all the way till January 15th. And honestly, I don't think it's fair to, you know, hang the blame for any of that on him. Okay, this is like fourth string dude who's in here, but actually kind of a starter. Should have been a starter, but it's like fourth string. So he needs some time to, you know, come together with a plan and all of that. So whatever that involves, I'm sure it's going to be very expensive. But, you know, I think some of this stuff you just have to accept. It's just part of the deal. Like spending is coming back now. We had no spending. Now we're going to have spending again. So he says, all right, here's the plan. Week of October 23rd, that's this week, energy and water. Next week, legislative branch, interior, and THUD. Next week, November, first week, FSG, CGS. Second week, November, labor, health and human services, and ag. He says, my friends, this is an ambitious schedule. But if our speaker can work across the conference to unify our membership and build consensus, we can achieve our necessary objectives. This is before he became the speaker. Now, in addition to our work on appropriations, I would propose to the majority leader the following modifications to the House schedule if there is consensus within the conference. 1, October, here's the plan. Pass Chairman McCall's resolution condemning Hamas. Reach consensus for a legislative blueprint through the end of this session. Pass all the appropriations bills and begin negotiating with the White House and the Senate. Begin conference negotiations for fiscal year 24. And begin negotiations with the FAA reauthorization as soon as the Senate passes it. And return to legislating and effectively messaging on our top issues and priorities. Now we move to December. Continuing with appropriations, pass the bill for 24, pass the Farm Bill, and await Senate action. Continuing into January, more appropriations, building a conference consensus for 2025 budgets, and complete House consideration of the various appropriations bills in May and July. Now in August, no break for district work unless all 12 appropriations bills have been passed. And in September, wrap up negotiations with the White House and appropriations. And then in the aftermath, October, December, expand our majority and complete any legislative items. So there's a rough little plan that's ahead. A lot of spending in there. Didn't see anything about DOJ, weaponized free speech. Didn't see anything about the Justice Department or really anything, you know, there. But all right, that's fine. So a lot of spending is going to happen from Mike Johnson. I'm excited to see what he does. We'll see if he moves the ball forward because Trump is happy about it. And other people that we know well, like Kinzinger and Schiff, they are very unhappy about it, which makes me happier about it. So this is Trump responding to the new Mike Johnson in the House. Here he is.
Who are you referring to as Trump?
Thank you very much, and I just want to congratulate Mike Johnson. He will be a great Speaker of the House, and we were very happy to have helped. I've known him for a long time. He's a tremendous leader and a tremendous man. Comes from a wonderful place, Louisiana. He's going to be, he's going to make us all proud. So at this time yesterday, nobody was thinking of Mike, and then we put out the word, and now he's the Speaker of the House. So I want to just thank all of the supporters that I have, and I want to thank all of the supporters that Mike has. And again, he'll be a great speaker. I think you're going to be very proud of him. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, and I think he has been good on a number of issues, one of which was January 6th. And so let's turn our attention over to these two knuckleheads who were on the January 6th committee, Shifty Schiff and Crying Kinzinger. And Schiff, he posted this about Mike Johnson, which makes me like this guy just that much more. He says, you know, you might be Googling who Mike Johnson is this morning. Let me make it simple. Johnson is a hard-right, pro-Trump leading election denier in the House. It's like, that's my guy, baby. Yo, shout out to Mike Johnson. He's my man. Sadly, this is what passes for speaker material in the Republican conference. So I'm pretty sure I'm on Team Mike Johnson now. Thank you, Adam, for doing that. And if there was any doubt about it, this is what Crying Adam Kinzinger says about it. And he says basically the same thing. He says, and he's got three flags now. So we'll see if it goes to 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. But he says, I remember Mike Johnson lobbying me to support the lawsuit claiming that the election was stolen. And every reporter needs to remember this. Trump ally lobbying fellow Republicans to support the Texas lawsuit to overturn the election. All right, so Adam Kinzinger is crying about it, and Shifty Schiff is shifting in his pencil neck about it. And so Mike Johnson sounds like a great fit. I'm very excited about it. And we'll be looking forward to seeing what he does. And what I'm really looking forward to is he's the speaker, right? So he's not necessarily involved in all of the subcommittees and all of their investigations. But this will open the House back up, which means James Comer is back on oversight, baby. We got Jason Smith back over on Ways and Means. And guess who's back over on Judiciary? Oh, that's right, Jim Jordan, baby. And so we'll get some more action, certainly, on oversight and Judiciary, on the impeachment inquiry, and more. And so congratulations to Mike Johnson and the Republicans for actually making a good decision this time and giving us an opportunity to explore what this guy can do and see if he can get things in alignment there. But my friends, we will continue to cover the congressional madness and more. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video. And of course, thank you for checking out our website, robertgovea.com, where you can sign up for our daily newsletter, get this segment, all the show reports, all the PDFs that are included that we just reviewed will all be available at robertgovea.com. So go on over there and check it out, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. So we got a new speaker in the House, and we'll see. It could be pretty good. We also got part 2 of the Motherlode under our belt. We'll very likely be back tomorrow with part 3, so we'll cover much shorter tomorrow. The vindictive prosecution and the inflammatory statement, so be sure you're subscribed. And we'll see what happens in trial in New York City. It could be even crazier, although it's hard to imagine that it's crazier than it was today. But we will be covering this case and all of them and more. And so thank you for joining us. We also will be heading over for our after party today after the show to debrief all the things we talked about with our members only for our members only after party. And so if you haven't already joined, we'd love to see you join us. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to be. But my friends, now it is time to hear from you. And let's see what you have to say about this. Oh my goodness, we had a supporter join us. Speaking of new membos, we got Big Red Dog is in the house joining us over on the YouTubes. And welcome aboard, Big Red Dog, signing up as a new membo. And let's see what else. Who else do we have in here? Now I'm scrolling up on my feed because I got discombobulated today. Boom. Rosie's here. What's up, Rosie? Says, hey, Rob, did you see this about our new speaker? Might be a good thing so far. He just needs to do the right thing for we, the people. And this is a link from somebody over on X called Mike Johnson. And so I have not seen it. I have not watched that. And so I'll take a look at it, Rosie. Thank you. But no, I've not seen his clip on it. We've got, and I agree. I think he might be good. We'll see. Sounds like he's, a positive development. Thanks, Rosie. We got Dolphin Fan is the man in the house, bringing in Big Don, Steve M, Frezio, Carolyn S, and Master Vader is in the house. Coming in courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. Thank you very much, Dolphin, for bringing in 5 new membos. And Tony Hay Munkets is here, bringing in 10 membos. Deborah E, Richard K, Liz B, Melanie's coming in. Angry Viking Veteran. Man, that sounds intense. Archangel's here. Laura W, Warren M, DW, and Designed Audio. All coming in, 10 membos, courtesy of our friend Tony Hay Munkets. Tony, thank you for being a membo and bringing in more membos. What else we got? Quarter Native is here, joining us over on the locals. And what's up, Quarter Native? Is that a new name, or did you change your name? Either way, I'm grateful. It's good to see you. And it feels like a new name to me. Says, every J6 committee member needs to be reminded every time they post. They suborned perjury. Steve Baker on X has the video and the stills proving Dunn and Lazarus lied in the Oath Keepers trial. They've been exposed, says Quarter Native. Yes, I think there's a lot more coming out on this, by the way. And I don't know about, I have to look that up. Okay, Steve Baker is the person who has it. I was trying to figure out that name. Okay, Steve Baker in the house. Thank you, Quarter Native, for that one. Sounds good. We got NY says, Letitia James saying objection from behind the bar gives credence to Trump's claims this is a fun house trial. It is a big joke for her. That's all it is. They're just yucking it up with each other. Nobody cares. This one is in the courtroom. I mean, we care. It's outrageous, but they're just like, whatever. This is just a show trial. It's just our enemies. They're having fun with it. Quarter Native says the next Republican Attorney General should immediately charge, no matter the time frame. After he just admitted to a crime, turnabout is fair play. Anyhow, doesn't the biggest tish in New York have to disclose if Cohen got immunity? What happens if they don't and it's found out later? Well, yeah, I think they would have to disclose that to Trump, but I don't think that they're going to, I don't think they needed to really give him blanket immunity. Because who's going to charge him, I guess is the question. Tish isn't charging him. It's like implied immunity, right? It's not like official immunity, but it's implied immunity. He knows he's fair game. Good to see you there, Quarter Native in the house. We got NY says, legally, I don't think he can make him pay a nonprofit. He can fine him and he goes to the court system. The judge looks like a fool. If I do relocate to New York State again, I will make sure I lobby to have him impeached. From the doctor in New York. Says Cohen is in violation of his plea agreement now by saying he told the truth. Catherine says, oh, how I wish I could be in that courtroom. Hi, Rob. What's up, Catherine? A membo for 3 months. That's 1/3 of the way to a baby. Good to see you, Catherine. We got the doctor's back. He says, getting back to the unitary executive theory, the one person that cannot defraud the U.S. government is the president. Without the process of impeachment, he is the government. It's 24/7. Linda says, what's up, Linda? Thank you for the nice dono. Says, thank you, my friend. Thank you, Linda. Very nice dono coming in. And thank you for the smiley face. Right back at you. I appreciate it. NY says, Jack Smith and Democrats may not like it, but the Electoral College is certified by Congress. It would be constitutional if Congress disagreed with the Electoral College for some reason or no reason. Then not certify the count, and the president would be chosen by Congress. It's happened, and it's within the Constitution. It's legally equivalent as if there was an electoral tie. Quarter Thug Life, Quantum Thug Life. What's up, Quantum Thug Life? Says, Gifton, 5 membos. Fire Salamander, Monkey F, Pete H, Presidential A, Astronomer, and Marms is coming in the house courtesy of Quantum Thug Life, quantuming it out in multiple dimensions. Doc says, these are solid briefs. I'd like to see how it survives. Can these pleadings go for an interlocutory appeal? To my untrained eye, it seems like plain error. Generally, no. Generally, criminal cases have to have their appeals done at the finding of a judgment, at the conclusion of the trial. John McGarvey's in the House, says the new Speaker of the House isn't an overt never Trump rhino, in parentheses, the fixer, admitted on the stand that he lied under oath. The fixer admitted on the stand that he lied under oath. Then we find out Rep. Jamal Bowman is being criminally charged. I'm nervous. Yeah, it's like a lot of wins, right? We got Liar Cohen. We've got, yeah, those are good wins. That's right. We did have some good wins today. Now that you mention it, John, that's good insight. Yeah, we got to take our victories when we get them. That's a good one. Saintly Beginnings is here. Says, can Trump appeal the Tish New York case? Yes, he can. Norman says, the American dream is alive and well. Let's go. I think that there are many areas that the American dream is alive and well. And there are many areas where it is dead and dying. But if you search for it, you can find a lot of American dream still out there and available. The Rubos are here. What's up from the Rubos? Saying, God bless America and God bless Speaker of the House, Rep. Mike Johnson. Very nice prayer and shout out from the Rubos over at rubosaltshop.com. We got Quantum's back. Hey, Quantum, another 5 membos. Who's coming in? Pan-seared ribeye, Wendy C., Huaja Talachik, Anita, and Randy H. coming in courtesy of Quantum Thug Life. This old guy's here says, hey, Jack Smith is either A, stupid in bringing these charges against Trump due to having slept through con law. If so, he should turn in his law license for a refund, or B, I don't think there's refunds for those, but says B, attempting to obstruct the 2024 election process under the color of law, which should get him at least 20 years in the federal pen. Just saying. Well, yeah, I mean, if Trump was doing this, if Trump was prosecuting Joe Biden, they would be screaming, they'd be screaming that this is the end of America, because no, they'd actually be right about it. If this was the same situation reversed, I'd be outraged, but it's not. We got this one from Ryan Patrick, says, hey, what's up? Welcome, Ryan. Becoming a new membo. Good to see you, Ryan. Be sure to grab the Telegram link so that we can catch you in the members only after party after the show. Pinochet's helicopter tours says Biden's never worried about the DOJ / the FBI during Trump. Well, I think that they were just covered. Maybe they were working with them. I don't know. But it's good to see you, Pinochet. Woodchip says, what's the use for even having that trial in New York? Well, it's to give a semblance of process, and it's really just to legitimize a corrupt attack on a political opponent in America. That's all. John's here. John McGarvey says, hey, Rob, if Willie Floyd takes a plea deal, is he eligible for first offender's expungement due to the fact that he has a previous felony? If so, this is yet another case of the Democrats persecuting a black man. And who's Willie Floyd? Is he... I don't know who that is. Is he another co-defendant? If you do have a prior felony, yeah, you'll be ineligible for the first offender expungement. Is Willie Floyd the other? There was another Floyd, but I didn't know that his name was Willie. I thought it was like Harrison or something. But yeah, if you have a prior, you're not eligible for it. And so, man, those are great comments. This one from Tony Hay says, Trump needs to start his own party, his MAGA party, then we can truly weed out the rhinos. Start his own MAGA party, and then we can truly weed out the rhinos. Well, we'll see if that happens. I mean, it might be making the party his own as we speak right now. And so, thank you, my friends, for those very generous, very great comments. And now, let's turn our attention over to the X platform and see who is joining us over there, if we have anybody joining on the show. And we do. We got 8 people viewing. Woo! 8 people over there. And let's see. Vientikiss, Norman's here. Fred's over there. Danny McWilliams, Feline Fun. We've got some comments. V says, well, at least he told us in the speech why he was made speaker right there at the end. It was even there, right there on the top of the list. They don't even try to hide who controls the country. And then the people still cheer. Norman says, thank you, Rob, for another great live stream. Always look forward to the next drop. Be well. and prosper for truth, liberty, and justice. Said, hey, this one's huge. Have you heard about this? This could be a game changer. I heard about some 11th Circuit emergency writs. I don't know that that's accurate. Okay, so be careful with that. I think that I saw Tracy Beans say that it was not actually accepted by the 11th Circuit. And sometimes people file things and they don't go anywhere. So just exercise caution. I've not looked into it, but be cautious about that one. Fred says, the fact that this is actually happening, prosecutorial discretion, selective prosecution, and judges' ultimate and unbridled power has to be reined in. That's from Lord Acton. Danny says, what will happen if Trump is convicted of having an opinion in other trials? Well, they'll sentence him to jail or something, or just try to convict him. Feline says, what's disheartening to me is that no matter how well crafted these motions to dismiss may be, I'm doubtful that Chutkin will do the honorable thing and dismiss. You're right about that. They're all going to be denied, by the way. Who are we kidding? Now, they're important that they're there because they're etching in the record for the appeal. Whether that appeal happens now as an interlocutory appeal or as at the end of the case once we have a final disposition, then we would appeal it. But I think she will deny them. There's no doubt. Hey, M Money says, my brother-in-law from New Jersey recommended you, and I told him I've already been watching you. Please say hi to Uncle Jimmy in New Jersey. What's up, Uncle Jimmy in New Jersey? Hey, Uncle Jimmy, thank you for the recommendation out there. Man, that's fun. And my question to you, M Money, is why weren't you recommending us to Uncle Jimmy? Huh? All right, thank you guys for recommending the show. Thanks for recommending it. How funny is that? All right, we got George's over there. We got some other comments as well. And so that, my friends, is over from our friends on the X platform. And if you want to join our Watchers community, you can do that over on X. This is what it looks like. And we're still trying to figure out what actually it does. But you should join it anyways, because we'll figure it out one day, and then you'll be a part of it. And so I think Elon's still figuring it out. I don't think it's just us. I don't think really anybody knows what to do with these communities, but we're there. And so come and check us out. It's a great way to meet other people, right? Follow other watchers, like their stuff, retweet them, dunk on the lefties with the support of your fellow watchers over there. And we'll see you back out there. And so that, my friends, thank you for those very generous donos and for the great comments on the X. We're not done yet. We're going to go over to our members only after party. So membos, stick around. YouTube friends, make sure you join us on Telegram if you'd like to stick around for the after party. And join in on the fun. You can also get all the latest news at robertgovea.com. Don't forget to sign up for our daily newsletter. All the PDFs are over there. All the good stuff is at robertgovea.com. And before we wrap up, I want to thank the mods and the meme smiths on the day. Thank you to Vientikiss for clipping away for us. Also, K Bean, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole. We got Zulus in the house. Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek 909, Dog Digger, our friend Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey modding down the fort for us. And thank you to our meme smiths, Jigam Gigam, Nathan N810, and Sleepy Dogly for beautifying the place up with the beautiful memes. But, my friends, that is it for us on the day. Tomorrow, we are going to be back here. I don't even know what we're going to have. We're going to have probably more Fanny stuff. Are we going to have more plea deals this week? I don't know. We're definitely going to have more Trump New York City trial tomorrow. We might have some more. We've got part 3 of the motions. And so it's just going to be a lot of fun. And of course, we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. See you right back here in the morning. Bye-bye.